Okay, so on that same line of thought, getting back to California here, California recently proposed legislation for a shortened 32-hour work week for larger companies. I'm reading on CNBC now. It says that the legislation would be put in effect, and it would affect companies with more than 500 employees. There would be no cut in pay, and those who work more would be compensated at a rate of no less than 1.5 times employees' regular rate of pay. That is crazy. Oh my God. Here's a quote about this. The idea is that employees work 80% of the time for 100% of pay and maintain 100% productivity. It comes down to working more efficiently, including cutting back on unnecessary meetings. So they're proposing a 4-day work week, getting rid of the other 8 hours, and then anyone who works at a company that has more than 500 employees, the company is responsible for overtime pay, which is time and a half. How ridiculous is that? Not only is this going to be a big problem, but I'm all in favor of increasing productivity. But the fact of the matter is that jobs will be outsourced to other states, right? Because if Texas says, fuck it, work 40 hours, work 50 hours, we don't give a fuck, all the jobs are going to go there. Like I can tell you that for a fact, right? The California taxes are already ridiculous for corporations. They're ridiculous on an individual level. Not only that, but you're putting companies in a position where it's most likely going to result in more research spending for AI and automation to just get rid of employees that live in California. And I'd also take it a step further and say that there's a very high likelihood of job displacement that will come from this. Another thing, too, which is totally worth noting, is like when you look at America and the reason why America is the innovation leader of the world, it just boils down to hard work and people who are willing to take a risk. And it just seems that California is doing everything they can to just drive businesses out in the quickest way possible and just turn it into a failed state. It is hilarious what's going on there. And honestly, I have no idea what to make of it other than look, I'm not conspiratorial, but like if I was trying to just run a place into the ground, I would kind of enact all the regulations that they've been doing. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Well, that's a very odd and peculiar statement that you made at the end there. But yeah, California is a mess. You got Twitter's headquarters, which is completely empty. Nobody shows up to it. You got homeless people outside Twitter's headquarters. You see Elon Musk said he's going to turn Twitter's headquarters into a homeless shelter because none of the employees want to show up to work. They want to sit at home and do their little coding in their bedroom in the bathroom on a toilet bowl, on a code in a toilet bowl. That's why Twitter is a complete mess. You can't get the edit function out for over 3 years because people are coding on a toilet. Yeah, you got regular taxes up to a zoo in California. You got income taxes up to Gazoo, corporate taxes up to Gazoo. All regulation up to Gazoo. You have to go through so much red tape to start a business there. It's ridiculous. Who would want to start a business in California? There's no opportunity there. All businesses go to California to die.
As technology progresses, and we get closer and closer towards more efficient technologies that will in theory improve people's lives, there's no reason to work 40 hours a week. I think most people, I mean, unless you're like an hourly employee, there really is no reason to work 40 hours a week because you, in all likelihood, if you're technologically literate, you can do your job faster and you can do it more efficiently than most people. So like with Excel, you can do things faster with different softwares and programs. And if you have some type of back-end programming experience with a programming language like Ruby, R, Python, anything like that, you can definitely finish things a lot faster than someone who doesn't have that experience. And even stuff like SQL and venturing more into like data analytics, you can totally do things faster. But the problem is that a lot of employers are like very slow to move on to things like that. But I'm so glad you brought up coding because coding is something that when you really think about jobs in particular, it's this weird left brain and right brain position because it comes down to how creative you are in writing your code. Like I could create a program that does a task and performs the function within 10 lines of code, but you might create a program that does the same task in 200 lines of code. And it just comes down to experience, creative input, and like different ways to approach it. So like we might solve it the same way or very similarly, but I might create a more efficient process in doing so. And that will just come with experience and expertise. So more often than not, you actually find that a lot of software developers, particularly on the back end, anyone that really specializes with Python, they create programs and lines of code that just solve these problems. It's very, very, very common for that to happen. And that is one area I could see if there ever is going to be a movement towards getting away from a 40-hour work week, it would be that. Because if someone gives you a task or a project and you have to use Python, you're coding, right? And they go, oh, it's going to take 20 hours, but you're an expert in Python and you know that you could create a program that will automate that entire project. Like, let's say it's a monthly project you have to work on for work. You could, and someone's saying it should take you 20 hours. So that's 20 hours a month, right? 240 hours a year, and you could create a program in 4 hours that completely automates that task, or 5 hours that completely automates that task. You're obviously going to do that. And it just comes down to your level of expertise and understanding of the programming language itself. Any movement away from a 40-hour work week, it would be something like that, just because it's purely based on your experience and your level of understanding of the code that you're writing in.
Well, your employer doesn't want you to, work less than 40 hours. Even if you can code it, they're coming up with these employee monitoring systems where they monitor your mouse, they monitor your emails, what you're doing. They check the webcam to see if you're actually committing, doing work, etc. So they don't want you to automate the process. They want you to keep working. And even if you could do the task in 20 hours, then they'll just add more to your workload that you previously didn't have to do. So these people do not want you to, condense your work week down. They want to maximize the utility of their laborers, and even if they become more efficient, then they just add more to their workload.
Yeah, I think it's really silly for employers to have that mentality, right? So it's funny that you bring that up, because there was this one instance where Andrew Carnegie was having problems at his steel mills, and there was like piping issues that he ran into, and he brought in Nikola Tesla. Everyone knows him, great innovator, great scientist, and Carnegie offered him tons of money to solve this problem. So Tesla goes in, he examines the site for no more than half an hour and immediately spots the issue and tells him how to correct it, and corrects the issue like right away. And Carnegie's like, well, I'm not going to pay you the full rate that you asked for. And Tesla says, no, you're going to pay me the full rate for my expertise, not based on how quickly I did it. So he basically says, in other words, you're not paying me for how quickly I do something, but you're paying me for the experience that I've accrued in knowing how to solve the thing quickly. And I think that's the same thing that employers need to realize. Like, you might pay someone $100,000 a year as an employer, or $150,000 a year, and truth be told, it really doesn't matter, because if the guy can figure out how to, if he can give you 60 hours of productivity in 10 hours, then guess what? That guy's worth the rate you're paying him in gold, because he's going to figure out ways to automate systems for your company, and he can increase his workload if he really kind of so chooses to do so. Because there's this weird game that goes on with employers, where if they figure out how productive employees truly are, then they just look to pile on and then burn them out. And it's just a foolish thing to do. I think if someone's smart enough to figure out how to do the task in 10 hours or 15 hours as opposed to 50 or 60 hours, I think they should be commended. And moreover, it moves the country towards becoming more innovative and moving more towards automation, and just figuring out generally like the best course of actions and ways to approach things.
Yeah, I mean, automation, if they can condense the amount of time to do an action, everybody benefits. The employee, can get the job done faster. You can make his clients happy, and they should be compensated for getting the work done faster, because everyone's